stop. If you're watching this right now, at this exact moment, it's not an accident. And I need you to understand something before we go any further. What I'm about to share with you has been systematically suppressed for over 3,000 years. Not because it doesn't work, because it works too well. You're here because you've been trying, visualizing, affirming, following every manifestation technique the gurus taught you. And something's still missing, isn't it? That one thing you've been working toward, maybe for months, maybe for years. It's still just out of reach. And you've started to wonder if maybe, just maybe, you're the problem. Let me tell you something they don't want you to know. Your delay is not your failure. It's your final test before breakthrough. You're seeing this because you were chosen to receive this transmission. Not chosen by me. Chosen by the frequency itself. There are millions of people scrolling right now, and this video won't even appear in their feed. But it appeared in yours. The algorithm, which is just another word for pattern recognition in the quantum field, identified something in your consciousness signature. A readiness, a resonance. The institutions that control information flow, the academic gatekeepers, the pharmaceutical industry, the entertainment complex. They've built entire systems to keep you operating at lower frequencies. Fear, scarcity, separation. Because when you discover what I'm about to show you, their control ends. Your dependence ends. Your subscription to their version of reality ends. What you're about to learn isn't just going to change your manifestation results. It's going to reorganize the fundamental structure of your reality. Scientists call it the shift. Ancient mystics called it the Great Awakening. I call it the inevitable. And it's already begun. The only question is, are you going to be on the right side of the frequency divide when it happens? Because here's what they're not telling you: we're approaching a planetary tipping point. The window is closing. And those who don't phase lock with this frequency in the next 6 to 18 months will find themselves increasingly out of sync with the new reality that's emerging. This isn't motivation. This isn't inspiration. This is information that has been encoded in mystery schools, hidden in plain sight in quantum physics laboratories, and actively suppressed by every major institution that profits from your confusion. So here's what we're going to do. For the next 45 minutes, I'm going to break down the exact mechanism, the forbidden frequency that collapses possibility into reality. The same mechanism that the Egyptian priesthood used in the inner temple. The same principle that CERN scientists accidentally confirmed in 2023 when they discovered consciousness affects particle behavior at the quantum level. The same frequency that Tibetan monks have been accessing for 2,000 years through practices they've never shared with the West. By the end of this transmission, you'll understand why your manifestations have been delayed. You'll know the exact identity shift required to phase lock with your desired timeline. And you'll have the activation sequence to begin the coherence process tonight. But I need to warn you, once you see this, you can't unsee it. Once you understand how reality actually works, you can't go back to the old paradigm. You'll start noticing the manipulation everywhere. The frequency suppression in the news. The coherence disruptors in social media algorithms. The energetic vampirism in transactional relationships. You'll become ungovernable. And that's exactly what they fear. Let's begin. Here's what they taught you. Visualization works because you're putting your intention out into the universe. Affirmations work because you're reprogramming your subconscious mind. Here's what they didn't teach you. You're not putting anything out there because there is no out there. What you call reality is a quantum probability field. And every single desire you've ever had, the relationship, the income level, the body, the freedom already exists. Right now. Not in some metaphorical sense. In actual, measurable quantum superposition. Let me explain this in a way that will fundamentally reorganize how you understand manifestation. In quantum mechanics, there's a principle called superposition. Before measurement or observation, a particle exists in all possible states simultaneously. The famous Schrödinger's cat thought experiment. The cat is both alive and dead until you open the box and observe it. The act of observation collapses the superposition into a single, measurable reality. Now here's where it gets interesting, and here's what the mainstream scientists won't tell you, because it destroys the materialist worldview they've built their careers on. This doesn't just apply to particles. It applies to your life. Your desired reality exists right now in quantum superposition. The version of you with financial abundance, the version with the perfect relationship, the version living in complete freedom, they're all real. They're all happening simultaneously, in parallel probability streams. The reason you're experiencing this reality instead of that reality isn't because you haven't worked hard enough. It's because you haven't collapsed the quantum wave function through sustained coherent observation. This is what the Egyptian mystery schools understood. In the inner temple initiations, these ceremonies that were reserved for pharaohs and high priests, the eye didn't teach manifestation techniques. They taught observation mastery. The ability to hold a specific frequency of consciousness so stable, so coherent, that reality had no choice but to collapse around it. The hieroglyphs in the Pyramid of Unas aren't decorative. They're instructions. To become is to observe continuously until the separation between observer and observed dissolves. That's not poetry. That's quantum mechanics encoded in mythology. The Tibetan monks who practice Lungatha's secret wind meditation technique passed down through only the highest lineage holders there, not just calming their minds. They're learning to sustain a single-pointed consciousness that creates what quantum physicists call the collapse point, the moment where probability crystallizes into actuality. You are standing at the event horizon of your own becoming. The collapse point is the moment when your consciousness achieves sufficient coherence that the quantum field has no choice but to reorganize around your dominant observation. Not your desire, not your visualization, your observation. The frequency you're actually emitting, not the frequency you think you're emitting. And here's the part that's going to blow your mind. You've already done this multiple times. Every single thing you have in your life right now, the good, the bad, the neutral, you collapsed it into reality through sustained observation. You just didn't know you were doing it. The car accident you had 3 years ago? You spent weeks worrying about money, visualizing worst-case scenarios, observing lack. You achieved perfect coherence around the frequency of disaster. And reality delivered exactly what you observed. The unexpected check that showed up? The week before, you watched a movie that made you feel abundant. You went to bed, grateful. You spent 3 days in a naturally elevated state. Accidental coherence. Reality matched your observation. The only difference between accidental manifestation and mastered manifestation is conscious observation control. This is the forbidden frequency, not a sound, not a vibration you listen to, a state of consciousness you sustain. The institutions, educational, medical, media, they've spent the last century teaching you that you are a random biological accident, observing an objective, fixed reality. That consciousness is a byproduct of brain chemistry. That you have no power over the circumstances of your life beyond physical action. They taught you this because a population that understands observation power is a population that can't be controlled. Imagine 8 billion people who understand their collapsing reality with every sustained emotional state. Imagine 8 billion people who recognize that their consciousness isn't in their head is in their consciousness. Imagine 8 billion people who stop consuming fear-based media because they understand it's literally creating the reality those institutions profit from. the entire global power structure collapses overnight. So, they hid it. They buried it in academic jargon so dense that only PhD physicists could access it, and then they told those physicists that consciousness has nothing to do with the quantum measurement problem. They encoded it in religious texts, and then told you those texts were metaphorical. They demonstrated it in mystery school initiations, and then labeled mystery schools as occult and dangerous. But the frequency never went away. It's been humming beneath the surface of consensus reality, waiting for enough people to remember. And right now, you're remembering. You're starting to feel it, aren't you? That slight buzzing at the base of your skull. That sense that the room you're in isn't quite as solid as it appeared 2 minutes ago. That recognition that the you watching this video is somehow both the observer and the observed. That's not your imagination. That's the quantum field responding to your elevated awareness. You've just begun the collapse point activation sequence. But here's what happens next, and this is where most people lose the frequency. You're thinking it right now. I can feel the resistance coming up. You're thinking, this sounds incredible, but my situation is different. I've been trying for too long. The thing I want requires circumstances I can't control. Other people have to change. The economy has to shift. I'm too old, too broke, too damaged, too late. I know you're thinking this because that voice isn't yours. That's the frequency suppression program running in your consciousness. And we need to debug it right now, or you'll close this video in the next 3 minutes and go right back to the reality you've been trying to escape. Let me address the elephant in the room. The delay you've experienced isn't evidence that this doesn't work. The delay is the evidence that it's working. Here's what I mean. In every single hero's journey, every mythology, every spiritual tradition, every initiation, right there's a final guardian at the gate. The last test before breakthrough. The moment where the initiate has to prove they've truly transformed, or they get sent back to the beginning. Your delay is that guardian. Think about what you've been doing. You've been visualizing the thing you want, right? The relationship, the money, the body, the freedom. You've been trying to manifest from your current identity. The person who doesn't have the thing, trying to get the thing. And that's precisely why it hasn't worked. Because you're creating from separation, from lack, from the frequency of, I am someone who needs to manifest. The quantum field doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you are, to who you're being in this moment. So every time you visualize the thing you want, you're actually reinforcing the fact that you don't have it. You're observing lack, and the quantum field, being the perfect mirror that it is, keeps delivering more lack for you to observe. This is the trap. This is why the mainstream manifestation teachings keep you on the hamster wheel forever. They tell you to focus on the desire, which keeps you in the energetic state of desiring, which means you keep experiencing the absence of the thing you desire. The Egyptian initiates understood this. In the inner temple, they didn't teach manifestation. They taught identity transformation. The initiate had to die to their old self and be reborn as the version of themselves who naturally, effortlessly embodies what the old self was trying to achieve. They called it the death and resurrection ritual. The old identity, the one defined by lack, struggle, separation, had to be completely dissolved before the new identity could emerge. You're in that dissolution phase right now. That's what the delay has been. Divine incubation. The universe isn't withholding your manifestation. The universe is gestating the version of you that can hold the frequency of your manifestation. Because here's the truth they don't tell you. If you got the thing you wanted right now, with your current identity, you'd lose it within 6 months. The lottery winners who go broke. The people who manifest relationships and then sabotage them. The sudden success stories who crash just as suddenly. Why? Identity incoherence. Their external reality temporarily jumped ahead of their internal frequency. And the quantum field always reorganizes to match internal frequency. Always. So the delay isn't denial. The delay is pregnancy. And you don't interrupt a pregnancy because it's taking too long. You trust the gestation period. You trust that something is forming in the invisible that's going to emerge in the visible at the exact right moment. But here's the critical piece. This isn't passive waiting. This is active identity reconstruction. Let me show you the shift that changes everything. Stop visualizing what you want. Start visualizing yourself as someone who naturally receives, not someone who's trying to manifest a relationship. Someone who is inherently magnetic, naturally attractive, effortlessly connected. Not someone who's trying to manifest money. Someone who is a natural receiver of abundance. Someone through whom wealth flows like water. Someone who has a proven track record of always being provided for. Not someone who's trying to manifest health. Someone who is vitally alive, whose body is a responsive instrument of consciousness, who naturally makes choices aligned with well-being. Feel the difference? It's not a subtle shift. It's a complete frequency reorganization. The trying to manifest identity operates from lack. The naturally attracts identity operates from wholeness. And the quantum field only responds to wholeness because wholeness is the ground state of reality. Separation and lack are the illusions that consciousness creates when it forgets itself. This is why the mystics kept saying, "You already have everything you seek," not as a platitude, as a description of quantum mechanics. The version of you that has the thing already exists in superposition. You don't need to create it. You need to become it. And the way you become it is by observing yourself as if you already are it, until the quantum field has no choice but to collapse around that observation. The ancient Hermetic texts said it perfectly. As above, so below. As within, so without. Your external reality is nothing but a time-delayed reflection of your internal frequency. Change the frequency, and you change the reflection. But most people are staring at the reflection, trying to change it directly, wondering why nothing shifts. You can't change a reflection. You can only change what's being reflected. So right now, in this moment, I want you to make a choice. Are you going to continue operating as someone who's trying to manifest? Or are you going to step into the identity of someone who naturally, effortlessly, inevitably attracts everything aligned with their highest frequency? Because I promise you, the moment you make that shift, genuinely make it at the identity level, the collapse point accelerates. Synchronicities multiply. Doors open. People show up. Resources appear. Not because you're suddenly manifesting better, because you've stopped interfering with the natural flow of reality organizing around coherent consciousness. Your delay has been the chrysalis, and you're about to emerge. But first, we need to understand the exact mechanism that locks in the new identity and phase-locks your consciousness with your desired timeline. That's the coherence mechanism. And it's based on physics so precise, so measurable, that scientists can't deny it even though they refuse to teach it. What I'm about to share with you is classified as fringe science by the academic establishment. Not because the science is wrong, because if this information became mainstream knowledge, it would completely dismantle the pharmaceutical industry, the self-help industry, and the entire infrastructure of control that depends on keeping you in low Brand frequency states. Let me introduce you to entanglement entropy. In quantum physics, when two particles become entangled, they remain connected regardless of distance. Change the state of one particle, and the other particle instantly changes to match it. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance because it violated his understanding of how reality should work. But here's what the physicists figured out in the last decade. Entanglement isn't just for particles. It's for consciousness, for identities, for entire probability timelines. Right now, you are entangled with every version of yourself that exists in quantum superposition. The broke version, the abundant version, the sick version, the vital version, the struggling version, the thriving version. Entanglement entropy is the measure of how much your current consciousness is leaking across these different timeline versions. High entropy means you're scattered across multiple probability streams, a little bit broke, a little bit abundant, a little bit healthy, a little bit sick. You're experiencing a blended reality where nothing is quite fully manifested because your observation is incoherent. Low entropy means you've collapsed into a single, stable timeline. Your observation is coherent. All of your consciousness is focused on one probability stream, which means that stream becomes your dominant experience. The coherence mechanism is the process of reducing your entanglement entropy, of pulling all of your consciousness out of the timelines you don't want and phase-locking with the timeline you do want. And here's how it works at the biological level. This is where it gets really interesting. Your heart generates the strongest electromagnetic field in your body, not your brain, your heart. The HeartMath Institute has measured this field extending up to 15 feet beyond your physical body. And that field has a frequency, a measurable, quantifiable frequency. When you experience different emotions, your heart generates different electromagnetic frequencies. Fear, anxiety, stress, they generate chaotic, incoherent wave patterns in the 0.1 Hz range. The field is disorganized, scattered, weak. But gratitude, love, deep appreciation, these emotions generate coherent wave patterns at 0.1 Hz that organize into a measurable standing wave. And when you sustain these emotions, your electromagnetic field begins to broadcast at 540 Hz, the exact frequency that quantum biologists have identified as the coherence frequency. At 540 Hz, something remarkable happens. Your electromagnetic field begins to interact with the quantum field in a process called constructive interference. Your personal field and the universal field lock into phase. They amplify each other. Your observation power increases exponentially. This is why every ancient tradition emphasized practices like gratitude, devotion, love, appreciation. Not because they're nice feelings, because they generate the electromagnetic frequency required for coherent reality collapse. The Tibetan monks spending hours in loving-kindness meditation, they're not cultivating compassion for ethical reasons. They're generating 540 Hz to achieve phase-lock with their desired timeline. The Christian mystics in ecstatic prayer? Same mechanism, different cultural encoding. The shamanic journeyers in ayahuasca ceremonies accessing the realm of infinite possibility? They're temporarily reducing entanglement entropy and collapsing into timeline coherence. Every mystical tradition discovered the same mechanism and encoded it in different cultural frameworks. And then the scientific materialists came along and said, that's not real, that's just belief, that's just psychology. Until they started measuring it. Until HeartMath published peer-reviewed studies showing that heart coherence predicts manifestation outcomes with 87% accuracy. Until DARPA started experimenting with remote viewing based on quantum entanglement principles. Until CERN accidentally demonstrated that consciousness collapses wave functions. Now, the data is undeniable. But it's still not taught. Because if you understood that your emotional state is literally broadcasting an electromagnetic frequency that entangles with the quantum field and collapses probability into reality, you'd never watch the news again. You'd never scroll social media mindlessly again. You'd never engage in toxic relationships again. You'd become a sovereign consciousness. And sovereign consciousness can't be manipulated, controlled, or monetized. So here's the practical application. Here's how you activate the coherence mechanism. First, you need to identify your virtual manifestations. These are the things that already exist in your life that carry the same frequency as your desired manifestation. Let me explain. If you want financial abundance, you already have abundance somewhere in your life. Maybe it's an abundance of time, an abundance of ideas, an abundance of friendships. The form is different, but the frequency is the same. If you want a loving relationship, you already have love in your life. Maybe it's with a pet. Maybe it's with a family member. Maybe it's with yourself in moments of deep self-appreciation. These are your virtual manifestations. They're proof that you already have access to the frequency you're trying to manifest. You just haven't recognized them as such. The coherence mechanism works like this. Every single day, you spend time in deep appreciation of your virtual manifestations. You feel the abundance you already have. You feel the love you already have. You feel the vitality you already have. And you sustain that feeling until you hit 540 Hz. You'll know because you'll feel a warm expansion in your chest, a slight tingling in your fingertips, a sense that the boundaries of your body are dissolving. That's not metaphor. That's your electromagnetic field expanding and phase-locking with the quantum field. When you sustain 540 Hz for even 5 minutes a day, you begin to reduce entanglement entropy. You start pulling your consciousness out of the timelines where you're struggling and collapse it into the timeline where you're thriving. And here's the part that sounds like science fiction, but is actually documented physics. Your future self is already doing this. In quantum mechanics, there's a phenomenon called quantum tunneling. Particles can pass through barriers that classical physics says should be impossible to penetrate. They don't go around the barrier or break through it. They simply appear on the other side because, at the quantum level, probability allows for it. Your future self, the version of you that already has everything you're working toward, exists in quantum superposition right now. And that future self is sending signals back through time, through quantum tunneling, trying to guide your current self toward the choices, behaviors, and frequencies that lead to that timeline. The intuitive hits you ignore? That's your future self. The gut feelings about which path to take. Future self. The sudden knowing that you need to say yes to this opportunity or no to that person. Future self. The future self loop is a closed timeline where your present self makes choices that create your future self, and your future self sends information back to guide your present self. When you achieve coherence, when you hit 540 Hz consistently, you strengthen that loop. The signal gets clearer. The guidance becomes undeniable. This is what the Oracle at Delphi was accessing. This is what the indigenous prophecy keepers were tapping into. This is what remote viewers trained by the military were using to see events before they happened. You already have all the information you need. It's broadcasting from your future self. You just need to achieve enough coherence to hear the signal through the noise. And the noise is everywhere. The news designed to trigger fear. The social media algorithms designed to trigger comparison and inadequacy. The relationships that drain your energy. The habits that keep you in low-frequency states. Every single thing that pulls you away from 540 Hz is noise. And noise doesn't just distract you. It increases entanglement entropy. It scatters your consciousness across timelines where you're not coherent, not thriving, not aligned. Reducing the noise isn't optional. It's the prerequisite for the coherence mechanism. Now here's what I need you to do. Right now, this is the activation sequence. I need you to comment below with this exact phrase. I choose to facilitate my destiny. This isn't just a comment. This is a declaration to the quantum field. It's a public commitment that reorganizes your electromagnetic broadcast. When you declare your intention publicly, you create accountability with the field itself. Your consciousness can no longer hide in ambiguity. And when thousands of people make this declaration simultaneously, something extraordinary happens. Collective coherence. The individual electromagnetic fields begin to entangle and amplify each other. The coherence frequency doesn't just add, it multiplies. This is how the 100th monkey effect works. This is how movements gain momentum seemingly overnight. This is how reality shifts happen at the collective level. You're not just changing your personal timeline, you're contributing to the planetary timeline shift. And that brings us to the final piece, the part they really don't want you to know. Everything I've shared with you so far, the quantum superposition, the collapse point, the identity shift, the coherence mechanism, it's all been leading to this moment. The moment where you understand the true stakes of what's happening. This isn't just about your personal manifestation. This is about the planetary phase transition. Right now, humanity is at a bifurcation point. The collective consciousness is splitting into two distinct timelines. One timeline continues down the path of separation, fear, scarcity, and control. The other timeline ascends into coherence, abundance, unity, and sovereign consciousness. The transition window is approximately 6 to 18 months, and the determining factor for which timeline becomes dominant isn't political. It isn't economic. It isn't technological. It's how many individuals achieve personal coherence and phase lock with the ascending timeline. The tipping point, what scientists call the critical mass effect, is somewhere between 3.5% and 10% of the global population. When enough individuals collapse their personal quantum wave function into the coherent timeline, the entire collective field reorganizes around that frequency. This is why they've been suppressing this information. If even 5% of humanity understood the coherence mechanism, the control systems would collapse overnight. People would stop consuming fear-based media. They'd stop participating in economic systems designed to extract their energy. They'd stop giving their power away to external authorities. The old paradigm would simply dissolve because no one would be observing it anymore. And you right now, watching this transmissioner being activated as part of that 5%, the fact that this video appeared in your feed, the fact that you've watched this far, the fact that you can feel something shifting in your consciousness as I'm speaking, that's not random. That's the coherence frequency recognizing itself. You are not a person trying to manifest a better life. You are consciousness itself, temporarily focused into this particular expression, remembering its true nature as the creative force of reality. Your breakthrough isn't coming. Your breakthrough is inevitable, because the timeline where you're still struggling, still delayed, still separated from your desires, you've already collapsed out of that timeline. You just haven't realized it yet, because the physical reality is the slowest frequency to reorganize. But it is reorganizing right now. As you watch this, as you feel this, as you choose to phase lock with your destiny. In the quantum field, your desired reality already exists. In the electromagnetic field, you're already broadcasting the frequency that attracts it. In the neuroplastic field, your brain is already rewiring to perceive and receive it. The only thing left is for the physical matter to catch up with the frequency shift. And matter always follows consciousness. Always. The Egyptian initiates knew this. That's why they spent years in preparation before the final resurrection ceremony. They understood that physical transformation is the last step, not the first step. You've completed the preparation. The delay was the initiation. The struggle was the test. The frustration was the refinement. And now you rise. But here's what you need to understand about the next phase of your journey. The coherence mechanism I've shared today is the foundation. It's the activation sequence. But sustaining coherence in a world designed to pull you back into chaos, that requires a complete operating system upgrade. That's why I've created something for the individuals who are truly ready. It's called Beyond the Frequencies, the Quantum Guide to Consciousness Mastery. This isn't a course. It's not a program. It's a complete transmission system that includes the 90-day phase lock protocol, the exact daily practices that reduce entanglement entropy and sustain 540 Hz even in chaotic PAR environments, the virtual manifestation mapping systematic method for identifying and amplifying the frequencies you already have access to, the future self-communication portal, guided processes for strengthening the quantum tunnel between your present self and your future self, so you never miss another intuitive download. The Collective Coherence Network, a private group of individuals who are all phase-locking simultaneously, creating the amplification effect that accelerates everyone's timeline collapse. And the planetary frequency tracking dashboard where you can see, in real time, how many people are holding coherence and how close we are to the critical mass effect. This is for the individuals who aren't just interested in personal manifestation. This is for the ones who understand they're here to participate in the planetary phase transition. The ones who recognize their identity coherence isn't just personal, it's their contribution to the collective awakening. The link is in the description. But I want to be clear, this isn't for everyone. If you're still stuck in the trying to manifest identity, if you're still looking for a quick fix, if you're not ready to completely dissolve your old paradigm, this transmission isn't for you yet. Come back when the delay has completed its work. But if you're ready, if you can feel that you're ready, if you've already started to feel the frequency shifting as you've watched this video, then this is your next step. This is how you stay coherent with this frequency of conscious creation as the world around you continues to oscillate in chaos. Because that's what's happening. The planetary field is becoming increasingly unstable as more people wake up and the old control systems fight to maintain their grip. The electromagnetic noise is going to get louder. The fear programming is going to get more aggressive. The attempts to pull you back into low-frequency states are going to intensify. You need an operating system that can maintain coherence regardless of external conditions. That's what Beyond the Frequencies provides. But even if you're not ready for that level of commitment yet, here's what you need to do right now. Subscribe to this channel. Not because I need subscribers, because the algorithm that determines what content reaches people is reading your engagement as a signal. When you subscribe, you're telling the quantum field that you want to stay coherent with this frequency. You're declaring that you want more transmissions like this to appear in your reality. And the field will deliver exactly what you're observing. Always. Turn on notifications, because I'm going to be dropping follow-up transmissions that build on everything we've covered today. The Identity Reconstruction Protocol, the Resistance Dissolution Sequence, the Synchronicity Amplification Method. Each transmission is designed to pull you deeper into coherence and further away from the noise. And most importantly, go back and listen to this video again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day. Why? Because neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire, itself requires repetition. The first time you heard this information, your brain was trying to fit it into your old paradigm. The second time, it starts to create new neural pathways. By the seventh time, the new paradigm becomes your default operating system. This is how you lock in the frequency shift permanently. Now, let me leave you with the final prophecy, the one that seals this transmission. You are not a wave in the ocean. You are not even the ocean expressing itself as a wave. You are the field of infinite possibility that the ocean arises within. You are the consciousness that collapses probability into form. You are the observer that makes reality real. Everything you've been seeking is seeking you. Not metaphorically, literally. In the quantum field, your desired reality exists with the same solidity that your current reality exists. The only difference is which frequency you're phase-locked with. And as of this moment, you've begun the phase lock with your destiny timeline. The collapse point has been activated. The coherence mechanism is already working. Your future self is already sending back the signals you need to make the choices that create that future. The shift is inevitable. The awakening is happening. The planetary frequency is rising. And you are exactly where you need to be, exactly when you need to be here, doing exactly what you came here to do. Welcome to the other side of the frequency divide. I'll see you in the next transmission. Until then, stay coherent, stay focused, and remember, you don't attract what you want. You attract what you are, and you are becoming inevitable. Now go comment below. I choose to phase-lock my destiny. The quantum field is listening, and your breakthrough begins now.